say either of them. Yeah, it could be. Maybe because I don't care about beauty. Maybe I just wouldn't bring one. What would I say? I would say bring your toiletries. Okay, so I would probably say, don't forget to pack your toiletries. But I don't even think I would say it was a case. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because we're communicating. It's pretty close. We're not going to worry about spelling, are we? Are we going to worry about spelling? You can tell we have an English teacher here. He's going to go through with the red pen and correct all the spelling. Okay, so we have what to bring, backpack or suitcase? Or?
Either one backhead. Either or.
Either or. Okay, so you can have a backpack or a suitcase, a vanity case, toiletry case. Oh, okay.
You have the suitcase, no?
Okay, then we have ID card, your visa, your passport, your cell phone, your camera, your cap. That's a good idea. Yeah, especially your baseball cap. Then everybody will think you're American. And, okay, your credit card, your visa. Okay, so we've got a list of things. Do we agree? Do you agree? Cell phone? Do you want to add something? Go ahead.
Good temper.
Good temper. Very good. Okay. Good, yeah. Maybe your patience. Maybe your good humor. Okay, so that was the first question. What was the second question? The second question. Okay, what is essential for a memorable trip? I'm going to give, this time you guys can have the red one. I can tell you like the red one. You like to correct. Okay. So you can write this time. What do you need for a memorable trip? Come up and write them on the board. Okay. You need a marker. You can join the group. You can tell them what to write. All right. Because it's interesting to see what you think would make a good trip. Okay, we have a tour guide. Wait, can you repeat that?
Nice encounters with people, meeting people all over the states.
Meeting people is important. Okay, do you want to add something?
Yes, good company we thought before, no? And yeah.
Good company that you meet or that comes with you?
With me and to meet during the trip, no?
Just, okay, you agree. Good. What do you think?
I don't speak English.
You don't speak English. That's a problem in America, you know. What are you going to do? Okay, then maybe you can say, I need a translator. Do you need a translator with you? Or a friend? A friend? The mobile with the translator. Okay, what about you, Bruna?
I'm sorry,
Think for a second. Your moment, think about it. I'll come back to you, don't worry. What do you think we need for a good trip? No, you don't understand. Okay.
good weather or...
Good weather is essential for a good trip. Okay, good weather.
Oh, yes, I have something.
Oh my gosh, tell me.
Are going to need this device, electric device, because the...
You need a converter, like for your plug? Yeah, well, I don't know. What do we call that? You need a converter for your electrical devices because we have different plugs, an adapter. Sure. So you need an adapter for, at that point, that becomes one of the most important things when you travel, right? Your phone and your adapter and your passport. I don't need anything else. I can just go with that. Good. Here we have good company, good organization, good weather, adapter, tour guide, nice encounters, and a trip organizer.
Bills and coins.
Money. Money helps. If you don't have money, but wait, maybe. Okay, is money essential? We already brought that on our packing list. Do we need that? All right, what was the third question? Or was that it? All right, let's put number 3. Are you going to be the recorder today? Where's the other pen? Who's got the other pen? The marker, you've got it. All right. Do you want to, you didn't get a chance before. You go ahead. Where are we going? I'm going to ask each of you, where are we you know where you're going. Where are we going? Huh? Brava. Where?
Sì.
America. You went to travel.
Sì, capisco poco.
Okay, you understand. Good, good. Okay, you want to go what, east side or east coast? Let's east side of what? Okay, let's say to go out east, because the east side for me is like the part of a town. Okay, I'm gonna go to the east side of West Side Story. Yeah, okay. So the east or the east coast. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a coast, it can be out east. Okay, what do you think? I know you have a very good idea about this.
From coast to coast,
Coast to coast, but which coast to which coast?
from Atlantic to Pacific, from New York City to LA.
From New York to LA. What about you?
Yes, me too.
What you two?
From coast to coast.
Coast to coast, New York, Los Angeles.
The west side of USA.
Out west. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, what about you?
From New York to Maine.
New York to Maine.
House of Marguerite Yourcenar.
Okay, good. Okay, once a year. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what do we have?
East Coast, New York, Vermont, Niagara Falls, Hollywood, Grand Canyon, Los Angeles, and Route 66.
Where does Route 66 start and end? It's almost.
Because I think that it starts from Chicago
Correct.
till Cali, no? Till California.
To California. It's in pieces now, but it used to be. Yeah, it starts in Chicago and goes to California. So this looks pretty good. What's your choice?
Los Angeles, I really love that city. It's my favorite one.
So you just want to start and stop there. Do you want to go there by car?
I would probably, no, by plane. I would, first of all, take a direct flight from Milan to New York City and then get from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Okay, so you want to go. Okay, so you want to go by plane. You don't want to go in a car or in motor transport, right?
Just by plane from Milan to New York City, but I would go by car from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Okay, East Coast to West Coast. How long is it going to take us? It depends. So we have a couple of weeks, a month. How fast could we do it? If we want to go really fast, we could do it in about 500 kilometers. It's a little longer than that a day. How many days would it take us?
Normally 2 weeks.
All right, if we want to take it easy, we can do it in 2 weeks, right? If you do it in 2 weeks, you can see some sights. If you want to go really fast, you could do it in between 4 and 6 days, okay?
Earlier, someone talked about the Midwest and the Lake regions. Yeah, but we didn't write anything on the whiteboard.
Right, because the Midwest always gets ignored, right? The Midwest comes out when we do a longer trip, though, because if you go from New York to California, you're going to pass through.
Don't tell Gatsby.
Huh? What?
Don't tell Gatsby that we don't speak about Midwest.
I won't say anything. Okay, well, let's talk about, we said that we're going to talk about road trips then and now. So road trips in America are really part of our DNA, right? America was born basically with the car, wasn't it? Okay, and we know, for example, that road trips have always been a thing, since, but wait, what does it take to do a road trip, though? What do I need to do a road trip? And? Okay, I need a form of transportation, right? So a road trip implies a road and something with wheels, okay? Now, a vehicle, right? And so when did it become popular to do these road trips? Well, first of all, 1920s is when it becomes a thing. okay? Now, Americans have always traveled. I mean, if we got there, we were travelers, right? We're nomads, just like basically everybody in the world. But in the 19th century, traveling was more of an upper class thing, right? You had the ships, you had and road travel really became popular. In the 1920s, there was a camping craze. People started going with their cars because what happened in the 1920s, Henry Ford mass-produced the Model T. Did you ever see the Model T before? Right. Well, because what he did, and I have to sign in. Coast to coast? That was later on. I don't know exactly when that was. I was mainly thinking, this is my new computer that has things popping up at all times, apparently. I just opened this thing, but now I have no idea where it is. So let's go back. Today I was on the train thinking I had 5 hours, which is how long I was on the train, thinking I had 5 hours to put all my links together, but I had no Wi-Fi. So I just decided to do it on my phone, and we'll do the best we can. So this is the Model T, okay? So this was produced in America from about 1908 to 1927, about. I could be wrong on it's either 27, 28. Henry Ford, famous because he created the assembly line, right? Where you could, instead of making each car in a custom tailored way, they could finally produce parts. You could replace parts. You could, this was very innovative for the time. And so this brought down the price of a car. Do you know how much a car cost at that time? You want to guess? You say $1,000? Less. How much less? Less than 500. Can you believe it? It was $250, which in the 1920s, we can imagine that $250 was a lot of money. It still is, right, to come up with. But that was much less expensive than cars had been before that. And in fact, it gave rise to this sort of desire to kind of see the country, to get out of the house, because even back then, there was the idea that life was getting too modern. We were working too much, maybe not getting outside enough. So there was a group. I love the idea of this, and I'll find a picture of this for you. Let's see if I can find it in a second. I think it's here. No, not this. This is about the Airstream. Here we are. I'm going to look for a bigger picture. Here you see, I don't know if you can see this kind of old-time picture, but this is a photo of what they were, a group of men, important men, called the Vagabonds. And the Vagabonds were made up of Henry Ford, the car maker, Mr. Firestone. Who is Mr. Firestone? What was his product? Tires. And President Harding. Okay? So there were some other friends as well. And basically, these men started a new trend, which is they would take their cars and they would go to a place all together. There was a lot of space back then, so it probably wasn't a problem for them to find a field or something, or go to the foot of a mountain, park their cars, kind of do these sort of kind of crude tents, and sleep on the ground, basically camping. And of course, their style of camping, if you see some of the pictures, is a little bit fancier than what you think of when you think of camping. They used porcelain plates. It was a little bit fancier than you would imagine, because they also had people kind of coming along and preparing things for them. President Harding had his Secret Service people with him, okay, because the president has always had a security detail. But what President Harding enjoyed about these outings, they went one time per year. And these men would decide, I think this one is at the foot of some mountain. You can see them reading the newspaper, having some conversation. And they would park their cars all together and camp and basically enjoy not having the Secret Service there. So the Secret Service would go and prepare the place, make sure there were no, whatever you would, anything to protect the president from. But he really enjoyed it because it was the one time a year when he really didn't have to be president. He was just a guy having some camping fun with his friends, okay? And so in the 20s, this was a thing. Obviously, it was still for a more privileged class because most people are working, and you had to have the car. But it was still a little bit more accessible than it had been before. So the 1920s, there was a boom in what they call auto-camping. So the idea was that your car would become a little bit of a home while you're away from home. So we can imagine people probably also slept in their cars, put their stuff in there, and would go out and explore new parts of the country, and then just to get away, right? So in the beginning, they would go to these open spaces and ask the owners if they could park there, and usually people didn't have a problem with that because there weren't that many people. With time, of course, this became more and more popular, and so the owners of these properties started to say, I don't think so, or you can stay, but you can pay, okay? So that's where we start seeing what we think about as like a campground, right? Which now, we see these all the time now, but at that time they were called auto camping grounds, okay? And these started popping up around the country, popping up to pop up. And these became sort of tourist destinations, okay? Now, at the end of the 1920s, the opposite happened. They became places where people started complaining of all the crime and bad things that were happening to them. So they started out as a very privileged place. They ended up being places that were less interesting to go to. And so that gave rise to the motor hotel, right, which we know as the motel, because people also got kind of tired of sleeping on the ground, and so there was a new kind of way to travel, stay at these, these motor places, motels, as we think of them, that are in motels still are along highways. Yeah. Okay. Yes. A famous Italian writer. Mario Soldati, I don't know, but there's a lot I don't know. He died many years ago, okay. I'm gonna have you say it.
Mario Soldati, Mario Soldati, no? They know, no? In the 20s, had a scholarship in the United States, no? And he was hosted, and he wrote a book, a famous book, no? It was a summary of his experience in the United States. It's one of the first book written by an Italian writer about the United States. It is America Primo Amore, America First Love, no? And in this book here, he writes that when he was in America during this scholarship, he was hosted by a family, of course, not like nowadays, and this family had the first car. And he did these trips, the big trips in the weekend with the cars, no? And he was a little bit appalled, like in Italian, no? And he said, more miles they do, more they're happy. They are happy.
Which is anybody who's been to the United States knows that it's so big that there are places where you can drive, where your radio, when you put, you're looking for a radio station, it will go all the way around the dial and not find a radio station. Like, that's how much space there is. And you're right, Americans love driving. We have a love affair with our cars. We've always had pretty reasonable, cheap gas. So we were able to do that. Even now it's more expensive, but it's still much cheaper than here. So yeah, there's also something about the freedom. Americans love being free. Everybody likes being free, I believe, but I want to look at, if we look at this page here, can you see it? Do you see these? Maybe you recognize this. What are these called? These are not vans. They look like a van. They almost look like a bus, don't they? They're like a trailer. Do you know what the name is? There's a name brand. It looks, okay, in Italian, c'est roulotte. These are the famous ones. They're called an Airstream. Do you know the Airstream? You'll recognize them later. So the original Airstream, when I show you the photos later, you will recognize it. It's the silver one that looks like a World War II plane. So this man here, he was born on the 4th of July. I love that. Okay, he was born in 1896. So basically, during the auto park, the auto camping craze, he was the right age for this stuff. He was a big camper, okay, and then he graduated from the university in 1921. He was a journalist, and he created this sort of tent on top of his Model T, right? So this was, camping, auto camping, as we were talking about, but he decided at some point, he was kind of an engineer type, he decided to kind of create like a little car, something that you could actually get it off the ground, you could sleep in it. He decided to create this thing so that his wife wouldn't have to sleep on the ground. She was not excited about that. So he decided to create something with a cover on it, with wheels that could be not be so temporary. He put a stove inside. He put an ice box inside, which is the old word for a refrigerator, something a little bit cruder. And he went around with this stuff. And he became known for this. And then his neighbors started saying, what is that thing? We want that too. So he started building these things. Let's see if we can find the photos. Looks like this isn't coming up very well. Oh well. I'll show you on my phone if it doesn't come up. So, here we go. No, the 1930s. So this has all of the history of the Airstream, okay? But basically, he opened a factory. Here we go. You see, it's more like this is like a very first kind of prototype of what would become what we call that sort of trailer, little, not quite a camper, because for us a camper is the one you can, we had lots of names for this. It's called a travel trailer, he called it. Then his neighbors were asking for them, so then he started making more. You might recognize this version, okay? Because he opened a factory because he figured, hey, if my neighbors are asking about it, maybe other people will be interested. And then, so it says here, 50... Yeah, there were less than 50 trailer manufacturers at that time, but in 1937, there were 400 of them. So camping in this way took hold, right? And I love this. Look at even the advertising, okay? Then the war happened, okay? And people weren't traveling around with these metal things anymore because the metal needed to be used for the war effort. And so they closed the factories down. People were not traveling at that time in the same way they were. So he thought, I'm finished for business. So the people who worked for him went to work in the factories that were building military aircraft, planes and things. Well, you can imagine that once they finished that work and went back to working on the Airstreams, they had a completely different look, right? They became much more, when you think about aircraft from that time, they sort of had that look because that's where their experience was coming from, okay? So in the 1940s, that's when the road trip really became a thing, after the war, okay? People started to travel more. They wanted to see the country. There was more money, okay? And the mass production of cars, of trailers, made it a more democratic way to travel. More people could do it. It wasn't just something for the elite anymore, okay? So we talked before about, I asked you what you thought you needed, And I was gonna show you, there are actually a million of these videos of people sharing what you would have in a camping car like in the 1920s, like videos of people showing you. But I was interested, we think about road trips now as you need your phone and your credit card and whatever. You have to think when people were doing these trips, they also probably had to bring gas with them. Right? Now we have, gas stations every few miles, but at that point you probably, in some places still in the United States, you better bring, in Alaska, for example, if you drive up that way, you may have to bring your gas with you, bring a way to cook, bring your food with you. They were eating a lot of sort of dehydrated food, lots of, beans and things like that. Cowboy food, basically, right? So what you bring is important, as it is now, but of course it was a little bit different. Now, we were talking about what makes an essential trip. You said good company. Who are we going to travel with? And how many? Are you going to go with a family, a friend, friends? You're going to go with friends. How many friends? 3 friends. Okay, they better be good friends, because you're going to be in the car for a long time. Think about the road trip films you know. What road trip films do you know? Can you? Thelma and Louise. So 2 people, okay? 2 girlfriends, okay? What other road trip films come to mind? American. Yeah, American. The Grapes of Wrath, okay, like that's, okay. But it's not a road trip though, right? They're migrating basically, they're moving, okay? But John Steinbeck is very important for this, I agree, yeah.
The very famous film, I can't remember the title, of the poor boy who finally they died into the wild.
Okay, Into the Wild, is that a road trip? Would we count that as a road trip movie? But it has some of the elements of a good road trip. Okay, Into the Wild, it's the boy leaving home. Oh yeah, because he's walking, you're right. He's basically hitchhiking, he has a car for a while, he goes to Alaska, makes some bad decisions, and it's actually a true story, right? It's a true story, yeah. With a great soundtrack, great music in that film. In fact, that's one of the essentials for Americans. We forgot to say your soundtrack. If you're going to go on a road trip, you better have good music. Okay? What movie do you think of when I sing this song? Born to be wild. What song is that from? Does it make you think of a motorcycle? Easy Rider. Okay, so Easy Rider was the motorcycle film, right, from 1969, I think it came out. And why was it so innovative? What they say about it now is that the reason that movie was so different at the time was because it used music that was popular at that moment. Music that reflected the times, okay? Now, if you remember in the film, it was a time when they're saying, oh, America is going to hell, right? So every generation thinks that America is going to hell. And the American road trip, one of the requirements is you have to be running away from something. Because remember, here we talk about the American road trip as I'm going as a tourist. I'm going to go visit these places. For the American road trip, it's not about visiting the places. It's about having an experience. And what is it? Punto Zero. Find the name in English. Let's see if we can find it. It's better. I'm sure it is. I mean, there are lots and lots of road trip movies, okay? Now, the ones that I'm mentioning, the ones that sort of come to mind, I've made a little list over here, because I was thinking about what... Blues Brothers, great movie. They're running away from something. And, road trips are also, if you think about America is a country of many paradoxes. America is different depending on who you are, what your class is, what your race is. So the road trip also is different for everyone. One of the essential things for a good road trip is you have to be kind of a misfit. You have to feel like this, I'm not comfortable in this place. There's something that I don't feel right. I have to go find out what it is. And so many of the stories that we have that are on the road, Jack Kerouac, here was a guy coming after the war saying, I don't feel like I fit in the mold of these other people. The television is telling me I'm supposed to be like this. I don't feel like that, right? Bruna? Green Book. Green Book is the one with the man with the driver. He's a black man. Totally different. Oh, fried green tomatoes. Yes. I'm going to come and let you talk about. It's a great movie, Fried Green Tomatoes.
Here is too much harmony for me. Yeah, a girl I can't remember very well, but at certain point she said, "Oh, here is too much harmony for me. I have to go."
I have to go, exactly. Thank you. Yes.
The American title of Punto Zero was Vanishing Point.
Okay.
It's famous, no?
Okay, good.
Do you know?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen that one. Okay, well, I'll definitely put it on my list. There's always a misfit. Good music, yeah. Because, and this is part of, I mean, it's not just a gimmick. I mean, a road trip is really part of the American, zeitgeist. It always has been. It's, the zeitgeist, right? It's just part of, like everybody's ready for it at the same time, right? And I think we have this, if there are famous books. Let's see if I can, you may know the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Of course you did, because back then everybody read this book. Of course you did, right? And even, this book is one of the classic books that we read when we're young. We're like, wow, I've got to go check these places out. There's philosophy in it. There's trying to, solve real world problems, because you have so much time in the car that you really connect to something different, okay? So the things that came to mind were Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, and yes? Right. It's super old, right? 1974. Right, it was a motorcycle one. Exactly, the father and the son. Yeah. Yeah, it's a. Right, and the perceptions are different. Yeah. So I put together a little list of, first you came up with your thing. I was thinking about how a road trip is, you have to feel a little bit outside of this world to really benefit from it. You have to feel different. And when you go on the road, you can be whoever you want, right? When you travel away from home, you can be anybody. And I think that's, and America is so diverse. These places are so different that you can really reinvent yourself. And I think a lot of the road trip is really, think about, Thelma and Louise. There's the housewife who's like, I got to get, I've been this sort of subservient housewife. I need to get out, and they become, murderers. But basically exploring a different kind of life. You saw the Green Book, maybe, where there's an African-American musician who has to have a white driver because he's not allowed to go in a lot of the places. Right? Right. Okay, the drivers are Italian, right? So that sort of talks about a different kind of America than, someone like me would have known, or even my parents or grandparents, So there's always been this sort of desire to try out a new persona, to go out and find yourself. It's like the hero's journey. When you're on your road trip, you are the star of your film, right? So you had some things that you thought were important. Well, I've got some things too. I think you don't have to be with good company. Often good road trips are alone. Because when you're alone, you meet people. And of course, you did say that it's important to meet people along the way. I put that the car has to be old and full of problems, because one of the things is when you can go on you either have time or money, but it's difficult to have both. So when you've got time, you don't have money. When you've got money, you don't have time. So a lot of the times you're going to be going with that super old car, and it's going to break down 1,000,000 times on the way. You're going to have to solve that problem. So that's one of them. A car has to be old usually. There's usually a reason to get out of town, so we talked about that. Maybe you just don't fit in this world. And again, isn't that true for all of us, right? Isn't there something in us where we feel like we're just a little bit different than other people? And maybe we want to go and look for people. It's the story of the ugly duckling. This is an archetypical story that goes back to, from storytelling. There's always been the group, and then there's the ugly duckling that was really a swan, right? So it's a story that, you don't know that one? The Ugly Duckling, the story of the Hans Christian Andersen. This is the, okay, yeah, where the ducks are like, oh, you're so ugly, and then, find out that you're a swan. So that's kind of, I think everybody has a little bit of the ugly duckling in them, right? We're looking for, how did I end up in this family, right? We said that everything in the car can break except for the radio. The radio is the only thing that must not break. If that breaks, it's the end of our trip, okay? The American experience of the road trip is also not about the big places. It's about the small places. It's about the places that my own husband, bless his heart, he loves America, but he's like, I don't want to go to your city anymore. It's so small and boring, and it's not a big city. So for many people, it's the big city that attracts them. You want to go to New York, Los Angeles, Boston. Americans want to escape those places. We want to go to Des Moines, Iowa. We want to go to Racine, Wisconsin. We want to go to that Greasy Spoon. You know what a Greasy Spoon is? It's a diner. It's the cheap place to eat that makes eggs, has the breakfast that you all think is disgusting, but we love, right? With the eggs and the potatoes and the sausages. And so we want to go to all those places where they only have the cheapest beer. They have the giant breakfasts in the morning, where everybody calls you sweetie, So the small towns are important to us, especially. And sometimes the small towns may not accept us. If we're different, there's some fear. Sometimes you may go into a place that maybe doesn't accept you. Maybe you're black, maybe you're gay, maybe you're trans. I mean, some of these places can be really dangerous, but are still places we want and we long to be accepted at anyway, because it's part of the American experience. But along the way, some people will be friendly. We just have to find them, right? What should we bring with us? Well, you have to bring camping chairs. So you need to have of course you're going to bring your bag with whatever you need, but the minimum. You can do your wash in the laundromat, no problem. But you need to have a folding chair. Okay? A folding chair. We would call it a camping chair, where you can put your beer in there. A cooler to put your beers. You better have a cooler for those beers, because you're going to want to stop and look at the sunset, hang out outside. There's a lot of places where you might just want to get out and sit in a parking lot. It's okay. Because a good road trip is going to take you off of the beaten path, as they say. It's not going to take us to the places where everyone else is going. We're going to end up there anyway, right? We're going to end up in Las Vegas, or we're going to end up in Los Angeles. We're going to go to the Grand Canyon. We'll get there. But before we get there, we're going to stop at many, many other places that are going to make it all worth it for us. Okay? So when I think back to road trips of my youth, brothers and sisters sleeping on each other, no air conditioning. It's hot in America in the summer. No air conditioning. Going to Florida from Wisconsin, 2-day trip, with your brothers and sisters, full car. You could only bring a few things. Coming home with big, giant bags of oranges that you had to put under your feet, but you couldn't mush them, because Florida's famous for their oranges, right? And just fighting over who got to choose the songs on the radio, you know. But those are some of the trips that we miss the most, right? I remember going on road trips myself in my first car and sleeping in my car whenever I got tired, just going into a parking lot and just sleeping. You know, trying to go, I did a 20-hour drive one time from my house in Wisconsin to New York, and I didn't want to pay for a hotel, so I just slept in my car. But I slept in my car during the day, and then I drove at night. I don't know. I didn't want to be in a parking lot alone as a woman at night. You know, I don't know. I pulled over when I was tired. So I would just pull over for two hours at a time maybe. And that usually was just like, happened to be, you know, at the right time, right? So these are the things that we're thinking about. Now I'm thinking about, I saw, you know, this sort of happens, right? When you're I've been thinking about the American road trip, and I was thinking about some things, and I listened to two things recently that I wanted to share with you. One of them was, I was listening to a podcast, which is my favorite podcast. It's called the Rich Roll Podcast. He's an athlete, and he always has these really interesting people on. And he had a woman on who was studying how to age well. How to become old without becoming old, which is a great idea. You know, I'm interested, right? And what science says, and I think this is where, again, you know, I'll put all these in a. I normally should have had my PDF all ready for you today, but like I said, all my links are all over the place. But there's scientific research that says that people who live a long time and they age well, they don't lose their, you know, their cognitive things, they stay physically active, are the people who make awe a practice. Do you know what awe is? This is a great word to know. Do you know what awe is? It's a little, yeah, let's see if I can find a definition for it that we can agree on. I'm going to just do awe and then definition. This is a great, so pronunciation? A feeling of reverential respect mixed with fear or wonder. They gazed in awe at the small mountain of diamonds, right? So, and there's an article here, look at this. It says, here's why you need to be cultivating awe in your life, okay? So this is an article about the health benefits of it. And of course, there are all these studies about it that keep you younger. And so what they suggest is going on awe walks. This is where you're walking and you just say, look at that little flower. Stop and look at it. Or you see something. And so I was thinking about this concept and about the studies behind it, thinking, wow, what a great idea. And then I watched a film the other day that's on Netflix called Will and Harper, okay? It's called Will and Harper. It's a it's a road trip film, and it's just came out on Netflix. And Will Ferrell is very famous by us. He's a comedian. He was on Saturday Night Live, and Harper Steele is actually a recently transitioned woman. So lived life as a man with another name. Steele is the last name, but I think it was Andrew Steele before, a writer, and good friends with Will Ferrell. He always felt like he was different. And at some point, and his favorite thing was to drive across the country so that he could be himself. So this is one of those cases of someone, a real story of someone leaving their house so that they can be who they really want to be, okay? Now, he had a family, he had a job, he had friends, never talked about this with anybody. Then, I think about 10 years ago, he came out to his family and just said, I'm sorry, I can't live this way anymore. I feel like I've been a woman forever, and I want to live this other life. So he wrote an email to all his friends, including Will Ferrell, and he said, you may not want to be my friend anymore, but this is what's happening. Will Ferrell said, you know, you'll always be my friend. So he accepted him right away, and he said, you know, I know that you love to go on road trips. Can we go on a road trip together so I can ask you all the questions I have for you? And this is a documentary about that road trip. Okay? And one of the things, and it's a beautiful, I loved it. It was a beautiful film because Harper Steele, the big worry, the misfit, the idea is that I love America so much. I've always traveled in America with no problem. Now I'm going out in the world as a different person. Will the world accept me? And knowing that, of course, probably not, especially in America in this moment. And so Will Ferrell says, well, I'm kind of famous. Maybe if I go with you, people will accept you better, and we can start the dialogue. And so they have this, they've got the camping chairs, they've got the cooler of beer, they've got the cheap beer, and they basically go across the country. And what was so interesting about this film, besides the conversations they have, because of course they're learning about each other and they're reinforcing their friendship, were these moments of awe. They really stopped and appreciated, like what normal people would say, oh, this is so stupid, oh, look at Americans, so they were like, look at how beautiful this, they loved everything. And I thought, wow, maybe that's the key to the American road trip. It's awe and cultivating that. So this again, it all kind of comes together. That wasn't where I expected to go with this conversation, but that's where it took me because of serendipity. These things happen. You've got some comments here.
She wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you. This remind me a film with Robert Redford, who was very, very old, but he wanted to go the Appalachian Road.
No Country for Old Men, I think.
No. Oh, yeah. Oh, but they fell and they are. He and his friend fell and they were in trouble, but then they forgot everything, and they were admiring a very beautiful sky during the night. And what is very nice is that when Robert Redford, I can't remember the name of the character. Was looking for a friend. No one were available to walk with him, and then the only who accepted to go was the wars or but yes, this remind me.
Thank you. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, basically you remind me that I have a friend of mine that comes from New Mexico, and just for buying gas, he has to drive for 1 hour. So he's from a rural area. And yeah, I know that in the US, you're basically lost if you have no car and driver's license. And for that reason, there you can start to get the driver test at 16, and here in Italy at 18. And in Ohio, for example, you can start at 14 to get the driving test.
Actually, some states are 13. And the reason is because you may have to drive the tractor. Okay, so in rural area, I think the age has probably been brought up in most places to 16, but when I lived there, so I've lived here for many years now, but there were some places, especially in rural areas, where 13 or 14 years old. Now, we can't drink alcohol at that age. We can only drink alcohol at 21 years old, but we can drive much earlier. But it's also a necessity, it's true. For us to go anywhere, we just don't have the infrastructure that you have. Big cities, Boston, New York, okay, they're gonna have a lot of buses. My town, you would have to wait 30 minutes for a bus, for every bus. So it's, just doesn't make sense. So the car has always dictated everything in America. Yes. My town, I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. Okay, so it's between Chicago and Milwaukee. Okay, Milwaukee has a good system. Chicago has a good system. Racine does not have a good bus system. Racine has about 80,000 people, maybe 78,000 now. It's a small town with big city problems because it's between two larger cities. So it does have a lot of big city problems. And it's considered not rural, it's considered urban. The big cities are Milwaukee and Chicago. So I'm an hour from Chicago and 40 minutes from Milwaukee. Of course I remember Home Alone, yeah. Yeah. I don't remember where it took place. It's not near my house. It could have been, it was probably in northern Illinois. Yeah, you're right. In fact, that house was even an Airbnb recently. You could go stay in the Home Alone house if you wanted. Anyway, good. I think I just wanted to, I'm sorry that I don't have all the, next time we're online, so we can have people who are watching from home can be more involved. I'll have, I'm going to prepare the PDF for this too, so you can also look at some of these links on your own. You can read about it. I did find this wonderful page that has quotes about the magic of wonder and awe. So I was going to finish with this one. It says, awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding of the world. That's actually a new quote because there's studies on awe right now. Socrates said, wisdom begins in wonder. And I love this one from Henry Miller, the writer. The moment one gives close attention to anything, even a blade of grass, it becomes a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself. I love that. And I think what I love especially about that, I'm going to just read one more because I love this one too. It says, number 4 says, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. And go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And for many of us, that's travel, right? So when we do something for ourselves, go for a road trip, be with friends, we're still going to be a better person when we're finished, and we're going to do better things in the world. So that's where I'm going to stop it. So I think hopefully this will get you thinking about all the wonderful places you have around you. We're always traveling far away, but we can have our awe walks right near our house too. We can have these every day, and then we'll stay young. We'll be young forever. Okay? Thank you.
Next topic is?
The next topic is going to be on the 10th, and it's called the American South. We're going down south. Okay, so the one after that, actually, we're going to probably I might have to change the one on the 17th, but that's going to be the East Coast. So I may have to change one of the dates because I have a business trip, but we'll see. If I can still do it, I'll do it. Then we have on the 24th of October, we have New York, just New York that day. Then we're going to talk about the out west, so that's a pretty vast one, and that's on the 31st. Then in November on the 7th, we're going to talk about, I'll be here that time, actually. On November 7th, I'll be here again. Bruna, did you hear that? My favorite host. And we're going to talk about the presidential elections, okay? So just one time about that. We're going to see what happens. Will we have the first woman president? We don't know yet. We'll see. And then on the 14th of November, we will talk about the Midwest, which is where I'm from. And then on the 21st of November, California, Pacific Northwest. 28th, we're going to talk about Native American reservations. And then our last one will be on December 4th. We talk about national parks then and now, and I'll be here for that one as well. Okay? So with all these things, I apologize in advance if I don't talk about exactly what you want me to talk about, but if there's something that you want to talk about on one of those dates, just send an email to the Che-Docs people. They'll tell me, and I'll put it in the lesson, okay? If there's something you want to know more about, because I kind of go where I want to go, but it's also true that you probably have some direction that you might be interested in. Feel free to give me some ideas. Inspire me, and I will go there, okay? Thank you.